Hello, beautiful people, and welcome. Today we're going to be talking about how to multiply fractions. This is a review, so if you have any questions or something is still unclear after this review, please don't hesitate to message me, ask me in class, or you can send me a email, whatever works for you. Disclaimer, I am human, so if you catch a mistake, please let me know where the mistake occurs. So that way we both can learn from my mistakes. Also, we are recording from home today, so if you hear any loud noises, I do apologize for that. Our kitty cat is having some fun in the background, so if you hear anything, that is Sylvanas playing. All right, let's get started with this review. We are multiplying fractions. So I'm going to start off with a few steps and an example. So step number one is take your numerators and multiply. Step number two, take your denominators You're going to take your denominators and multiply. Step number three, simplify your final answer. Now, these three steps are very simple, and I just want to kind of mention or clarify that this works for regular fractions. Regular fractions, and improper. If you have a mixed number, what I would recommend is to convert it to an improper and then go from there. But I'll make a separate video on that. Okay, so we're focusing on regular fractions and improper fractions. Now, improper, there's nothing wrong with those type of fractions. It just means that the numerator is larger in value than the denominator. That's all that means. All right, let's do some examples. You have your numerator, multiply. Denominators, multiply, simplify your final answer. All right, let's get started. Example one. Let's do 2/3 times 4/5. Step number one, take your numerators and multiply. Step number two, take your denominators and multiply. 4 times 2 or 2 times 4 is 8. 3 times 5 is 15. Again, if you have a multiplication table, this is the time to use it if you're not solid on your multiplication, okay? You should be able to do these lower level questions where the numbers are smaller, but sometimes you're going to get large numbers. So if you have large numbers, you need to be able to multiply them without a multiplication table in front of you. All right, let's see if we can simplify this. Maybe, maybe not. So I'm going to say I have 8. What are my factors of 8? I have 4 times 2. 15, I have 3 and 5. Now, something I want to notice, or I want you to notice, is look at our factors here and look at our factors here. You notice something? They're the same. 4 times 2, 4 times 2, 3 times 5, 3 times 5. So if you have a number that's the same on top and bottom here, you can simplify in this step. You don't have to wait towards the end. But in this case, there are no matching numbers, so 8/15 is our final answer. All right, let's do another one. Example 2. And I'm going to write answer here so it's not confusing. That's the answer. Okay, let's do something a little bit more difficult. I'm going to throw in a negative. So I'm going to say -3. What am I doing? -3/5 times Let's do 10. What do I want to do? 10. Let's do 10 thirds. Okay, so step number 1 is take your numerator and multiply. Don't worry about the negative just yet. Take your denominator and multiply. So here's the thing. Is there anything that we can cancel out right away? Is there anything that we can simplify? So absolutely, I see a 3 here and I see a 3 here. Don't worry about that negative. We're not touching that negative. The negative remains. So these cancel out. So what am I left with? What is my leftovers? I have a negative, I have a 10, and I have a 5. So again, continue. I know 10 and 5 can simplify, so I'm going to rewrite 10. Keep that negative just out in front. Don't worry about it. We have one negative, so I'm just going to write one negative here. 10, the factors of 10 is 5 and 2. The factors of 5 is just 5 and 1. So is there anything that matches? Yes, 5 matches. That goes away. So what am I left over with? I'm left over with a negative, a 2, and a 1 in my denominator. Now, anytime you have a 1 in your denominator, we want to undo that by just ignoring it. 1 in the denominator doesn't really matter. If you want to keep it as a fraction, you would leave it. But since we're going into integrated math 1, we want to simplify that to a negative 2. Now, I'm going to show you a different way to do this question here. It's called cross-canceling. So I'm going to show you. I'm going to go from step here. This is another way to do it. So negative 3 times 10 all over 5 times 3. So far, nothing new. I have my 3 and my 3. That goes away. This is the other step. I know that 5 and 10 share something because if I do my multiples of 5, I know 5 times 2 is 10. So right over here, I'm going to undo my 10 and I'm going to just write 5 times 2 on top of it. And I want to make sure that I'm crossing out this 10 so I don't have a 10 and a 5 times 2. I want to undo my 10. I want to rewrite it and substitute with a 5 times 2. Now that I have done that, I can see that I have a 5 and I have a 5 and I can cancel that out. And then what am I left over with? Well, I have 1 times 1 here. That's just 1. I have negative left over. Don't forget your negative. So negative's left over and then a 2's left over. So then your final answer is negative 2. You can do that. You can rewrite inside your multiplication question. You can do that. If you want to wait towards the end, you can do that as well. But I say simplify as soon as possible. That way you have smaller numbers to work with, especially if you are given an assessment, a quiz, or an exam, a test, and where you don't have your multiplication table in front of you. Simplifying as soon as possible will help you and will decrease the numbers. All right, let's try again. Number 3. Example number 3. So let's do something with even more negatives. I'm going to do a negative 4 thirds. And I'm going to multiply that. And I'm going to show you a different way to multiply. Not necessarily a different way to multiply, but a different notation that also means multiplication. And I'm going to say 12. Let's do 12/6. We want an improper fraction. That has not been simplified for us. So this here is also multiplication. Don't let the parentheses scare you. This means, let me get this pen to work. This means negative 4 thirds times 12/6. So it still means multiply, even though originally there was no dot there. So if it makes you feel better, go ahead and put a dot there so that way you know it is multiplication. So now that we have decided this is multiplication, we're going to go ahead and continue. with our steps. Step number 1, take your numerator and multiply. Now before I continue, this negative seems to be in the middle, so I'm just going to take my negative and put it on top. So I'm going to say I have a negative 4 times 12, and I have a 3 times 6. Now again, big numbers. 4 and 12, I don't know what that is, and 3 and 6, I mean, I can figure it out using my hands, but I'm going to do what I did here, and I'm going to try to simplify first. For example, I have a negative, I'm going to keep my negative. That doesn't change. 4, I know the factors of 4 is 2 times 2. That is 4. And I'm going to put that in parentheses. This is my 4. Now, my factors of 12, I know it's going to be 2 times 6. 2 times 6 is 12. 3 is just 3 times 1, so that doesn't really change. And then 6, I know 6 is 3 times 2, but I'm going to keep it as 6 just because I know I have a 6 on top. So if you wanted to, you could do 3 times 2, but then you'd have to simplify again. So I know I have a 6 here, and I know I have a 6 here. So I'm going to happily cancel those out. Do I have a 2? I don't have a 2. I don't have, so it looks like that's my only thing that I can simplify. But now I have, what do I have? I still have my negative, that doesn't change. And I have 2 times 2 times 2. Well, 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. And then I have my 3 times 1 is 3. And because we already listed out our factors here, we don't need to simplify again because we already did it in this step. All right, you guys, I hope you had fun in this review video. Again, if you have any questions, definitely reach out to me. Let me know what your questions are. If you caught a mistake, I'm human, I do apologize. Just let me know where the mistake happened so that way we can both learn from my mistakes. Again, as always, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for watching this video. Like, share, and subscribe so that way I can bring more wonderful videos your way. Thank you, and have a good day.